Welcome to the Week 2 SCPI Baseball Podcast in the LA City section. Connor Morissette and Alex Scarr here with you for Week 2. Last week we were at Chatsworth. Today we took in a game from Cleveland High School. Pasadena beats Cleveland 3-2. Alex, before we get into the top 10, games to watch, game balls, takeaways from today. Cleveland, they made it close at the end. They were down 3-0, got to within one run, but then fell short.
Yeah, Cleveland, home of MLB legend Brett Saberhagen. I don't know if you knew that, but
Did not.
He pitched for the Royals. Long baseball career here in the Major League. So Cleveland, one of the more historic programs in LA City. As you mentioned, kind of had to fight and claw their way back, but they didn't give up. Only gave up 3 runs. One of those kind of games where you hope the 6 might be a little bit more alive, but pitching was strong today from Pasadena. Cleveland, they continue to schedule some of the toughest opponents, so you kind of have to read a little bit into this loss. Not that bad.
Sneak peek, Cleveland is in our top 10 this week. I won't reveal exactly where until we get to them. But Alex, let's move into the top 10. Some movers and some shakers to really begin things. Some teams who were in it last week have fallen off. Some teams who weren't are in. And at 10, it's Granada Hills, a team who's making their first appearance so far this year.
Yeah, good thing for the Highlanders. Before we jump into the 10, let's talk about Taft and Sylmar. We had to drop both of them out. Kind of tough for Sylmar. A game got rained out actually against Taft. But a lot of teams are playing baseball. When you're playing ball and you're winning games, you're going to get more noticed. Taft, they dropped 2 games this week against good teams. So for now, they've fallen out. They have plenty of opportunities to jump back in. But as you mentioned, Granada Hills, they're 6-2, 1 run allowed in their last 3 games. So the pitching is alive. When you can do that, you're going to beat a lot of teams. So Granada Hills, welcome to the top 10.
At number 9, Carson, a team from the Marine League. We haven't seen too much from the Marine League so far this season, but they're on our radar.
Yeah, Carson, they are 6-3, and they just swept a doubleheader against Venice. Venice, one of the better teams. They were one of the best teams in the city section last year, so a lot of talent left the program, but they still have a decent team. Carson went out and took it to him, won back-to-back games against him, and they're 6-3. So, like I said, teams playing good baseball right now. A lot of rainouts, so kind of tough for some clubs, but they're playing good baseball and they're winning, so another new team in the top 10. Go Colts.
At 8, it's Cleveland, where we are at right now. And with Cleveland just taking in some of that game, I was very impressed with them defensively. Their pitching, I thought, was great. They switched out 2 guys and switched between those 2 in this game. The bats were what let them down today, and we'll see if they can bounce back and hit the ball in the next few weeks. But they're at 8 right now, and they look like a team that has a lot of promise.
Yeah, pitching and defense. I mean, that's what helped Birmingham be so good in these last couple of years. Not that they can't hit, but pitching and defense is a great way to build a good ball club. Cleveland not off to the great start. I think they're 2-5 right now, but they continue to play really good teams. Pasadena is another very good team. This is part of the Babe Herman tournament, one of the best tournaments in Southern California. So, good club. Tough teams, tough start, but I still believe in the Cavs, and I think they come back.
At number 7, we have our first team from the Western League, Palisades.
Yeah, so Palisades, they got a quality win in their Western League opener. They have their Western League opener on Friday or on Monday. They had a quality win over Granada Hills. So Palisades, they're a team that we had, I think they were at 6 before we dropped them down to 7. Kind of stirring up a little drama in the Western League because Hamilton, as we'll get to in a second, they're a jump ahead. So these 2 teams, Hamilton and Palisades, I expect them to go head-to-head all year in the Western League.
Yeah, Hamilton's 6, and those 2 are going to play each other next week, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But they had a standout performance from a pitcher in one of their last games. They look great, and right now we have them as the top team in the Western League, but of course league play hasn't even started yet. Once we see some more games in the league, we'll know for sure, but right now they're 6.
Hamilton at 6. They're 6-2. As I mentioned, they're at the top of the Western League. We're going to get a really good idea. Hamilton and Palisades, they play Monday, and then they play again on Friday. So we'll have a really good idea of where those teams stack up against each other. But Hamilton, I took in a game against, they were playing Southeast a couple of days ago. They look good. The sharp pitching out of Fino Amador, the right-hander for Hamilton. Daniel Krasnick, one of their best hitters in the city section, really had 4 RBIs this week, had a home run against Taft, an absolute bomb. So that's a kid to watch out for in Hamilton. Swinging the bats well, pitching well, team to watch out for.
Into the top 5, El Camino Real stays put at 5 this week. Thoughts on the Conquistadors, Alex?
Well, back-to-back shutouts here for El Camino Real. Good pitching from Adam Christopher and Cole Kitchen. They've got shutouts of Malibu and Narbonne, so some good pitching there from the Conquistadors. El Camino is a funny program. They're one of the best teams in LA City. They schedule some of the best teams, and sometimes they don't win. And it's kind of tough to get an idea of how good they really are when they play teams. They're playing teams like West Ranch, one of the best teams in Southern California. So I think as league play starts getting into it, El Camino is going to start ramping up. I expect them to make a jump here pretty soon.
At 4, the team who's just mashing the ball, Roosevelt, they still stay at 4. Again, kind of a dark horse for us. We're going to see how they perform as league play starts, but they're off to a great start, and they're continuing off that hot start and look great.
Yeah, man, Roosevelt, they're 8-2, and as you mentioned, they're mashing, but they beat Taft 2-1. And that, to me, is really, really telling. Luis Martinez, 6 innings, only 1 run allowed. If you win those close ball games and you're only giving up 1 run, if you've got sticks like that, and I mentioned last week on our podcast, they've scored the most runs in LA City. If you can pitch like that and then you bring the sticks, Roosevelt's going to be a tough team all season long. I'm really impressed.
Into the top 3, Kennedy at number 3. They've just been consistent so far this year. They look great.
Yeah, they're 7-4, and they've played one thing with the Cougars that I've noticed. They played 11 games. Most teams have played 7, 8 games, maybe 9 games. A lot of teams have gotten rained out, and the Cougars, they continue to play baseball. So they might be a little bit gassed. Had a tough loss against Chatsworth this week at 9-1. They dropped that game. But you play a lot of games early. Maybe they're not quite in rhythm. I see the Cougars 1, 2, 3. They're going to be there all year. So a little bit of a tough start, but I think they're just fine.
At 2, where we were at last week, Chatsworth, Gabe Achucaro pitching well for them still. He's going to be tough to hit in the city section in their number 2. It looks like the number 1 team is the class of the city section, but Chatsworth is right there.
Yep, 4 straight wins for the Chancellors. 5-2, as I mentioned. They beat Kennedy 9-1. It's going to be tough to kind of break in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those teams are going to be right in the mix all year long. As we mentioned, El Camino, I expect them to make a jump. So expect nothing less from Chatsworth. When Chatsworth and Birmingham and you mix El Camino in there, it's going to be some fun baseball come May and June.
And number 1, Patriots from Birmingham. Again, they look like the class of the city section. And, I mean, they do the little things right, like you mentioned last week. If they have a runner on first, they're going to bunt them over. They're going to score runs, play small ball. Got a great catcher in Johnny Tincher. Great pitchers who we'll get to in a little bit. Complete team.
Yeah, they're 6-4. They just dropped a doubleheader against Jay Serra. They moved it up from Friday, played it Thursday. But
tough opponent.
Tough opponent. One of the best teams really in all of the state. So when you schedule those kind of games, it's really about how you play. How do you pitch? How do you compete? Winning would be fantastic, but you kind of have to take some of these losses with a grain of salt. You have to understand why they're playing them. It's a great tune-up for the city. I mean, Jay Serra's, frankly, it's better than just about any talent they're going to see. So to go up there to compete as well as they did, they're ready to jump in, and I'm expecting big things for the Patriots.
Let's move on now to some games to watch, games we're paying attention to this week. Best game, City versus City. Hamilton at Palisades Monday, a game, Alex, we talked about a little bit earlier in the podcast. 2 Western League teams going at it. They actually play twice next week, once Monday, once Friday. It's going to be a battle to see really who's on top in that Western League because those are the 2 premier teams, it seems like.
Yeah, I've seen Hamilton. I haven't seen Palisades. I've heard a lot about the Western League. Now, Hamilton won in 2013. They won again in 2015. Palisades, Venice, and then you've got Laces, one team that people have really tried to turn me on to. Watch this team. A lot of good kids from the Chevy Hills Little League feeds into Laces and also feeds into Hamilton, so we'll try to take in some there, but this is probably going to be the matchup to decide the Western League, or at least decide who the most talented team in the Western League is. As you mentioned, they play twice, once on Monday at Palisades and then once on Friday back at Hamilton. I'm excited. I hope to take in at least one of those games, really get a feel for it. Really, really solid and impressive pitching out of the Yankees so far this season. Haven't seen Palisades, but I expect them to be right there too. Really, really 2 good games to watch.
On Tuesday, the best team in the city is in action. Birmingham, they host Cajon.
Yeah, Cajon, one good team from the southern section. I think that's also part of the Babe Herman tournament, kind of going all over the city in Southern California. So some good talent, Birmingham, but they beat Sierra Canyon. They just played Jay Serra pretty tough, so I expect the Patriots to come out, give them their best. They get to play at home, which is always nice, so good things expecting here from Birmingham.
And then one other game we're looking at, also on Tuesday, Chatsworth travels to take on Burbank.
Yeah, Chatsworth, Burbank, Burroughs, some of those schools that aren't part of LA City, but you grow up with these kids, you play Little League with them, you see the same faces. So in a way, this is kind of a non-league, non-city rivalry game. Good thing for Chatsworth, they're on a hot streak, so they're going to roll into this ball game. Hopefully all systems go, and I expect them to take it.
Now, Alex, we'll move on to the game ball segment where we highlight some of the top players in the city section from last week. You have one, I have one. Who's your game ball this week?
My game ball is Jake Levy out of Hamilton, a complete game, 1-hit shutout against Taft. Taft, a team that we mentioned, had a really, really tough week. Dropped a game there to Roosevelt and then dropped this one to Hamilton. Jake Levy, absolute shutout stuff. Going to see a lot of him. I'm not sure if he's pitching on Monday against Palisades, but either Monday or Friday I expect to see some Jake Levy, and he pitched a heck of a ball game against Taft. Get a game ball from me.
For me, I have DJ Virginie from Birmingham. 6 innings pitched, 1 hit allowed, 6 strikeouts, and a 4-0 win over Marshall for Virginie this past week. Last week we mentioned a different Birmingham starter, so there's depth there. The Patriots, like we said, they can hit, they can pitch. And DJ Virginie, he gets the game ball from me this week, but that team looks about as complete as any team in the city right now.
Yeah, Virginie, when I was at Birmingham, I watched Albert Garcia pitch really well.
Yes.
But Virginie was in the dugout with his pitching jacket. Every 50-50 ball, every foul ball he was flying after, getting the baseball. He wasn't going to lose that. So when he gets on the mound, I can only imagine the kind of bulldog that he is. Virginie, great game against Marshall. You're going to do great things. Same with the Patriots. Game ball for him.
That'll do it for the Week 2 baseball podcast in Los Angeles. For Alex Garr, I'm Connor Morissette. If you see us around Diamonds anywhere in the Los Angeles area, feel free to track us down, say hello. Would love to hear from you. We appreciate the following. Our first podcast did pretty well. We're hoping this one does well as well. So thank you so much for following us, and we'll see you at some baseball fields near you. Have a good week.